Good morning, everyone. I'm really pleased to see you again here at MtS today. And thank you very much for being invited to this great conference and meeting so many great people here. As you can see, the topic is identity in cross-linguistic legal syntax. And broadly speaking, identity may be found central to the self-concept in itself, while legal syntax also finds its niche when it comes to the analysis of the newly rising and well-established terminological sets within the set linguistic paradigms of the language under focus. The area of cultural development and legal domain relating to the particulars of a people, on the one hand, merely takes a while to spot the similarities traceable beyond the borders of the existing national, linguistic, gender phenomena embodied in the structural tailored patterns. On the other hand, transculture in cross-linguistic studies looks to overcome the restraints imposed by the local mindsets, including these linguistic, social, political, and ethical determinants. It persistently drives to broaden views and opportunities to open up new horizons. Consequently, being part of multiculture, it approaches cosmopolitanism at large to be further viewed through the mirror of microcosmopolitanism. As far as deep understanding of the legal context is required to join the verbalized linguistic structures, I suggest today we may have a look at several languages at play: English, Portuguese, and Ukrainian. To start with, I believe it is right the notion for the identity as a legal syntagma must be defined first. Next, I'll dwell on the general classified four notional types of the syntagma and corresponding syntagmatic relations. Further, among the three typical syntagmatic relations, I'll emphasize the coordinate ones that are of specific interest to us today, as far as they remain left out in the contrastive status of the legal context in the English, Portuguese, and Ukrainian languages. And finally, I'll suggest that we may follow Fowler's terminology for the doubled pairs and provide you with a set of selected legal examples to see how translingualism may be rooted in the legal syntax. In this respect, what I mean by identity in legal syntax is a terminological set at the smallest syntactic unit in the English, Portuguese, and Ukrainian languages. And for the purpose of the legal context, I would limit such to the area of law of obligations. In other words, of special value arises the terminological syntagma in the three contrasted languages as revealed through the syntagmatic relations by means of bridging syntax and semantics. As syntagmatic relations are immediate linear relations between units in a segmental sequence, that syntactic legal syntagma stands for the combination of two single terms or terminological sets, one of which is modified by the other. Hence, we arrive at the four main notional types of syntagma, where one is predicative, it's combination of subject and predicate. The other is objective, it's verb and its object. Then the next to follow attributive, a noun and its attribute, and adverbial, where we speak about a modified notional word, such as, for instance, a verb, an adjective, or an adverb that is modified adverbial, or with its adverbial modifier. All the mentioned legal syntagmas are based on the syntagmatic relations manifested in speech, respectively. Thus, we can speak of predicative syntagmatic relations, and here where we have subject-predicate relation, and we deal with predicative syntagmas in the contrasted languages, where objective, attributive, or adverbial notional syntagmas are under focus of study, subordinate syntagmatic relations are at play. Of utter surprise was viewed to legal syntax, and as the smallest syntactic unit in the three contrasted languages is another type of the syntagmatic relations, that's coordinate. And citing Shakespeare's Hamlet here, I would say, here is the rub. Speaking of the smallest syntactic unit in the legal context and the syntagmatic relations in between, we can closely approximate the issue of the legal identity for the purpose of this report, so-called legal Siamese twins in translation. These are English, Portuguese, and Ukrainian legal sets that are not subject to modification, nor amendment, nor alteration, nor any sort of change in any way, including such as parsing, as far as such are perceived an entire whole, and which is why I consider it integral. As regards the very term of Siamese twins in translation, the English linguistics goes back to the beginning of the 20th century, and please note here we may refer to works by Henry Fowler. However, a few other terms appear later. So for the same notion as the Siamese twins in translation, we work with the irreversible binomials, that is unconditional two-component constructions or patterns that are not subject to change. Then we speak with other groups of binomials simply deriving from mathematics, which means binom or a two-component element. Also, we may encounter such a term, synonymous, which is binomial pairs, inseparably bound units, or phrases, fixed set expressions from the English to freeze, to fix, to make it solid, to finalize. Therefore, legal Siamese twins in the English, Portuguese, Ukrainian, and Russian languages in some instances are composed of the two key terms, at the very least, which are strictly ordered and fixed in speech, and definitely recognizable in the context of agreement or legal translation or interpreting. Moreover, it should be minded that the order may never be reversed. Some of these legal Siamese twins are set expressions presently used not only in the legal context or in agreements and contracts or legal translation or interpreting, but also in everyday life. For instance, we may find some quite known to us, such as sink or swim, which means that you should risk, and here you either win or lose, or due and payable in English, and its corresponding correlate in Portuguese, débito and exigível, or vencido in exigível, which means something that must be paid. Another correlation or Siamese twin is heads or tails, or in Portuguese, cara ou coroa, and it's for situations where people may not take a decision and they may not find a compromise. They toss a coin, and then they decide if that's heads or tails, so such a decision or compromise should be made. Then another could be give or take, in Portuguese, mais ou menos, which means approximately, nearly, like ballpark figure, and so on. And in the slide, you may see several examples, like in sentences, in the sequence. In English, expected every 28 days, give or take, for the next 5 years. So it's about the delivery. And in Portuguese, it's translated similarly, but with another Siamese twin, or with another legal doublet, mais ou menos. Espero a cada 28 dias, mais ou menos, durante os próximos 5 anos. And the Russian equivalent correlate следует ожидать, что поставки каждые 28 дней, где-то так, в течение следующих 5 лет. As we can see from the structurally tailored pattern, the English, Portuguese, Russian Siamese twins clearly demonstrate a logical consistency and inseparability in the context and coherent speech. In addition, this peculiarity lies with the impossibility to reverse the order of the legal terms as key elements. Before we proceed, I'd like to draw attention to the similarities of the legal Siamese twins in cross-cultural legal context. Irrespective of the languages, such feature coordinate syntagmatic relations, embodied with the help of the linking conjunctions. In English, we have and, or, and in Portuguese, e and or, contrastive, respectively. So, let's move further and look at some models of the legal Siamese twins in the English and Portuguese languages that can refer to construction of agreements and contracts, and may quite often, if not always, occur in the legal translation. So model 1. Here, we have the English Siamese doublet or twin, dim and consider. So when we look at this dim, Dim and consider, it means like to consider something or to deem something, and it derives from deem, to consider just something in a particular way, and consider, to spend time thinking about a possibility or making a decision. The idea is that in everyday speech, we may use these two verbs separately, and it's not a big deal, so everybody understands what is meant, but for the purpose and correctness and truthfulness and the accurate translation into the English language where we work with the legal context, you should mind that if you say just one part of it, it may be a like grave mistake, because later it may entail some real grave consequences, because the nature of the legal term and the nature of the context determines what may happen next. The other legal doublet or semis-twin is in English cease and desist. So if we look at the semis-twin separately, we may understand that we have the English verb to cease, which means to stop something, or to stop doing something, and desist, to stop doing something, especially something that someone else does not want to do. But as we combine the two verbs in one, and they make this inseparable whole or integral whole, we can understand that it is not just to stop doing some action or to stop doing some act, it is exactly to stop doing some unlawful act that, again, may result in some sort of punishment. In Portuguese, we have the correlate to it, which is parar e renunciar. To stop doing something, specifically if it's going to be against the law. The following sentences demonstrate how these legal semis-twins operate in translation. So in English, they are gonna take this case from you and demand you cease and desist. In Português, eles vão retirar-lhe este caso exigem para renúncia. And in Russian, они заберут у тебя это дело, будут требовать отказа от него. Либо же будут требовать, чтобы ты отказался от него. Then, we can look at modal B, the next one, and another coordination or coordinative linear relations between the terms in English, Portuguese, and Russian languages. And the examples can brightly demonstrate that and clearly demonstrate that. In English, due and payable, where like due means expected to happen, arrive at a particular time. Specifically in business, finance, and law, it means something that has approached the day on which it's mature, and payable, it's clear that one that can be paid. But where we speak about something as due, it doesn't mean that it has got this legal context only. So we may say in everyday speech like baby is due, and then we give it a date, then something must be payable, and so on also. But due and payable is an inseparable whole to go for letters of credit and a lot of financial instruments. And for this purpose, this legal and financial term presents itself as this inseparable integral whole. Another example is final and conclusive, from final, last, and conclusive, proving that something is true or ending any doubt. And the Portuguese correlate, devido and exigível or vencido exigível, that must be paid. We can see some more sentences, and to cut it short, I would move to modal C, where we have another combination and demonstration of the coordinate relations in this syntagma, in the notional syntagma. And here we can come to such as goods and chattels in English, where goods go for movable property and all the properties. And at the same time, chattels, it's like all personal belongings or movable property. Another is liens and encumbrances, where we speak about rights by third parties, third persons, or right by a third party to claim a debt from another party. And I'm so sorry. And in this case, we can see that all these examples clearly demonstrate that the legal semis-twins are characterized by the phenomenon of lexical parallelism. the part of speech of the first brother, so-called first brother, would determine the part of speech of that second brother in the twin pair, and in which, again, we can see and underline the inseparability of the twins and dependence on one another. So here we would distinguish the following modals in English, Portuguese languages and in translation. So group 1, legal semis twins expressed by the verbs. So where we have verb plus a verb. Then group 2, the semis twins in the contrasted languages expressed by adjectives or present participle or past participle, but in any way we should understand that these two elements or these two key terms of the semis twins should belong to the same part of speech. Group 3 is the legal semis twins that are expressed by nouns or nominal sets. So I do believe that I got some attention of yours and of all the researchers present here today. And in the future, we may try together and find out more specifics of such a classification, and we can work it out. Then, the English and Portuguese semis twins, in majority of cases, prove that some of these legal twins actually are much more frequently used in the doublet rather than independently. Then the next point for conclusion is that despite the mentioned similarities, please do not ignore the divergent semasiological peculiarities of the English and Portuguese semis twins as opposed to idioms. Thus, out-of-date meaning of one of the key terms is not separately used in everyday speech. And the next, the doublicity of the semis twins in the meaning will absolutely correlate with one another. Further, hyper-hyponymic relations between the key terms, and finally synonymy and antonymy in relation to each other. And the last but not the least to conclude is that the semis twins, as the smallest syntactic legal units, consist of two or more terms or words that are near synonyms. And it may be explained as follows, that the origin of the doubling, and sometimes specifically in the English context for contracts and agreements which we do in writing and translation in writing, lies with the transition of the legal language from Latin to French. And certain words were simply given in their Latin or French origin and then accompanied by the legal English forms. So often pairing an English word or a more archaic Anglo-Saxon with a Latin or French synonym, so that the understanding could be ensured. And I've run out of time, so and I hope here it's like the most important thing that I wanted to mention, like for a conclusion. And thank you very much for your attention. And I'm ready for questions. Thank you.